I firmly believe the world could do with a lot more renaissances. Why is it that Europe and Disney, and Bengal if you're an especially big history nerd, are the only ones to get a rebirth in the last 1,000 years? I say Renaissance Google, Renaissance McDonald's, Microsoft, and absolutely Renaissance America for the love of God. Jokes aside, it's interesting how ubiquitous the term Disney Renaissance became, along with all the other labels for their various eras, like their Chinese dynasties or something. But its various managerial directions throughout the 1900s honestly warrant it. And of course, I'm bringing this up now because who else does the mouse have to thank for lifting the brand out of the Dark Ages but the shrewd competition of Don Bluth, I mean the Little Mermaid. Welcome back, everyone and everything. Atlantica is our next destination. No more whales to lampoon our progress, so it's once again a simple gummy route away. And wonder of wonders, no new enemy gummy blueprints to go over either. I would dive straight in, but its frickin' planet thing is one of the coolest in the games, and I'd be remiss not to gush about it just a little. The Sea Dragon and Shipwreck are cool on their own, but all the particle effects really elevate this one. The bubbles, pulsating lights, and of course, the ocean currents surrounding it all. Here's a peculiar tidbit. In the original game, before there were gummy ship missions, pressing triangle on this screen pulled up the model of the world to be viewed much like the characters in Jiminy's journal. You can still do it in Final Mix, but it's not the same. We're not done out here just yet. Donald's got a magical trick up his sleeve that he is in fact not gonna teach to Sora. We just gotta trust in the duck. This kicks ass, actually. We've gone over a few potential costume changes Sora may have been planned to undergo, but I wonder if they saved it for this point so the drastic change would hit that much harder. We get to be a merman this level. That rules. As for Dobson and Goofsome, these animal hybrid designs only get cooler the more you think about them. They don't become merfolk because they're not humans. Instead, the half-animal designs they do get are based on their RPG roles. Goofy, the tank, gets his protective playstyle represented by a tough turtle shell, whereas Donald's octopus legs are likely inspired by Cicalia, a subspecies of merfolk more commonly associated with magic than their dolphin counterparts, especially one iconic sea witch. An odd detail of Goofy's new design is that his hat has changed colors. You may recognize his green stovepipe as his signature look from the classic cartoons, whereas his Kingdom Hearts design swapped most of his colors around, and gave his hat a bit of Nomura flair. It's nice to get this nod to his iconic origins, but I can't help but wonder why? Especially since Donald still lost his hat in the transformation. My friend Endless posited that it might have been a modeling thing. The top of Donald's head was rendered for the sake of some animations where his hat flies off like in the cartoons, but taking an invasive look at Goofy's model, the top of his head is accounted for too, so I don't know. Goofy's design was also tweaked in Final Mix. In the original game, his flippers were the same color as his face, and I do think this was a flattering upgrade.
Come on, Sebastian!
Ariel, wait! Slow down! Don't leave me behind!
While Horatio Thelonious Ignatius Crustaceus Sebastian is not voiced by his big screen actor Samuel Wright, he is voiced by one of my personal favorites, Kevin Michael Richardson, who knocks it out of the water.
Ariel! King Triton will not like this!
Oh, don't worry.
Oh, and don't worry, I know. We'll get to her. Now with this crazy new 3D movement system, it's only fair the world should start with a strict tutorial like this. We're given a safe space to stretch our lack of legs, and can really come to grips with some of this world's ups and downs, shall we say. Atlantica is one of the most divisive worlds in the entire series, if not one of the most outright reviled. For everything really cool it does, it gives with one tentacular spade and takes with the other. We have unlocked three-dimensional movement, basically flight, so every environment needs to be pretty strictly enclosed and locked down with an invisible ceiling. We convey we're underwater with a few nifty effects, like bubbles on all our movements and some really pretty caustics on the floor, but also everything on screen at all times is subject to this sea-sickening stretch and squash filter. Ugh. God. The background music is the Academy Award-winning Calypso Bop, Under the Sea. Downside, the background music is the Academy Award-winning Calypso Bop, Under the Sea on loop forever. And once we've tagged Flounder a few times, we can get into combat, and here's where the real issues surface. Our entire physical combat moveset has been adapted for underwater play, and the only melee attack-related ability that has any bearing down in the deep is Combo Plus. Air Combo Plus, Ripple Drive, Slapshot, Hurricane Blast, Aerial Sweep, Sliding Dash, Counterattack, any limits, all worthless until we're back on dry land. What's more, our left face button is designated for descending, so guarding or dodge rolling is is also out of the question. This has all essentially earned Atlantica the reputation of the world where you don't really have a choice but to mash attack and pray. Even if that is how a lot of players prefer to tackle most combat anyway, not having the option is indisputably a problem. And even if jamming the X button is your go-to strategy, just by nature of how we move through the water, Sora's attacks don't close distance nearly as consistently. That all leaves us with one tool: magic. Once again, we have a Disney world which stands as a representation of one of the game's core mechanics, not just as a means of combat, but interacting with the world, as we can see immediately with this red clamshell that will only open when we cast fire on it. Likewise, The Little Mermaid has many strong magical through-lines we'll get to later. The main enemies we'll be encountering around here, sea neons, also serve to illustrate this magical emphasis. All of the Heartless we'll run into throughout Atlantica will have little to nothing in the way of magic resistances. Combine that with the fact we've just picked up the Spellbinder, and yeah, the game is bending on all sail towards its magic system. As long as it's doing that, I'd say this is a golden opportunity for us to take another look at these ridiculous damage formulae. Before we start, I want to give another enormous shout out to Nick McSlighton for correcting me both very thoroughly and very kindly. Here's the deal. These horrors over here involving Euler's number, and yes, as long as we're correcting things that is pronounced Euler, are technically correct, and do still have some application I'll get to later. They are accurate representations of the damage these spells do, but they are not the internal formula. The piece of the puzzle I was missing was Kingdom Hearts' base damage formula. All damage, whether physical or magical, is calculated using this equation: 10 times 2 to the power of x minus 9 over 4, where x is equal to the attacker's strength or MP minus the opponent's defense adapted for any variations caused by the technique used, such as finishers, limits, or critical hit bonuses. Unless x winds up as a value of 8 or less, in which case the damage formula is forgone entirely and x is used as the final damage outcome. And, at least according to what I can find, Sora cannot deal less than 2 damage. Yeah, okay, so maybe it doesn't use Euler's number, but I wouldn't exactly say it's nicer. Essentially, what I didn't realize is that the magic damage values listed by the wikis in Ultimania are correct, but they are merely a small part of the overall equation, which I had erroneously assumed was only for calculating physical damage. With this new information, we no longer have to reverse engineer the damage values and can simply slot in the information available to us. As an example, I plugged in Genie's most powerful spell, Blowaway Shot. However, I still quite like the ones I credit Samuel Camel for, because they do a better job conveying each spell's base power. Fire having a power of MP plus 20, then Fire having one of MP plus 28, doesn't quite communicate that the spell will now deal quadruple the damage on the other side, but compare the Eulered up versions and the difference is much clearer. None of this has any bearing on how Stop or Gravity are calculated, since neither gets squeezed through the base damage formula, but there are 2 more spells whose code we haven't yet addressed: Arrow and Cure. They're especially relevant now with Ariel as an optional party member, since she is essentially a supportive mage, capable of casting both to keep us topped off. Arrow's easy. The damage it blocks is fixed at half, applied after every other factor, including the damage caps applied by EXP0. The effect RMP has on it is similar to Stop, its duration, which is max MP plus 18 in seconds. Cure also doesn't get blended up in all this, healing a flat rate of max MP plus 15 in HP. This was dramatically changed from its original pre-final mix formula. I imagine this was to balance things in favor of less magic-centric builds, as well as to make Cure a bit more valuable when you first get it without being quite as powerful in the endgame. We'll see how well that worked when we get there. In the meantime, I feel it only fitting that Goofy be the one to sit this world out. Sorry, bud. You must be at least this much of a magical girl to ride this ride. On top of everything else, Atlantica also gets a lot of flack for being quite tough to navigate. It almost feels like it was on purpose, but not in the way Monstro was, more like the devs are deliberately trolling you. For instance, instead of chests, we have clams, a very cool bit of flavor that makes the world feel more unique, but not only do they not disappear once you've gotten their contents, they close after a second, making it harder to tell what you've already gotten. This area, the Undersea Valley, is separated by a few loading zones, and the names of each entrance are not correct? Calm depths, huh? That's really what you named the cave with the torrential undertow? Oh, where's this one lead? The Undersea Trench? Well, that's easy. That's just actually the Undersea Valley. It's no wonder they needed to decorate the walls with actual arrows pointing the way forwards, but holy crap, they also couldn't have chosen a more difficult critical path. You have to get swept away in that undertow and veer off to the side before its terminus. If these tridents weren't quite literally signposting the way, I'm quite certain Baby Tussie never would have found that. Even with them, I have strong memories of it still taking an embarrassingly long time. Search ghosts appear in this world in such a way we can observe their yellow light behavior, in which they essentially pinpoint your position and directly seek you out anyway, so there's really no point to it mechanically, but I'll admit, it is creepy. I'll also point out that this is the first world we've been to that does not have shadows. This purple sea urchin is a nifty bit of dynamic world design. Hit it, and yeah, what'd you expect, you masochist? But cast fire, and in a few seconds, it will detonate, and open a shortcut in and out of this chamber. That's excellent. Creating permanent world connectivity as we explore will always earn a game points in my eyes. The undersea cave is not part of the valley and can be filled with white mushrooms. These are identical to the ones in the treehouse, existing only as triggers for a pink agaricus encounter. This is one of the most baffling rare heartless encounters in this game, because as difficult as its prizes are to earn in the jungle, they are several orders of magnitude more unfeasible down in the briny. I'm half convinced this was only put here as a pseudo Easter egg, that maybe the devs liked watching her dance to this song in particular. If so, fair. It is a jam and the dance fits oddly well, but seriously, why? Next is the Undersea Gorge, a much more straightforward area than the valley. It's basically a direct line to our destination. You know, I'll give this to the clams, the quality of their treasure is extraordinary. Pretty much all mithril or mega somethings. I can appreciate that. Triton's Palace is one of those areas that makes it really hard not to imagine how much cooler things could have been. Look at this place, the giant shells, the oceanic vista, the sunlight coming down from the surface, the glow of these light fixtures, the Atlantican architecture is gorgeous, at least when it's not phallic. And the presence of this path here is the perfect answer to this world's navigation conundrum. Having a road through the area leading to the palace would, ironically, feel so much more organic than the Triton signs. Why couldn't they make the whole world look like this? There's a new enemy in here, the Screwdiver. Whoa, 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 I hardly know her. That one was for you, Pat. Essentially, this world's version of soldiers, though I can't help but be extra fond of this design. The torpedo head, their brilliant choice of a dinglehopper as their weapon. Just be aware of their immunity to thunder. In fact, they absorb it like a yellow opera. Yep, super immune to all lightning magic. Can't touch them. They don't feel a jolt.
As long as I have my Triton, I will not tolerate those creatures inside this palace.
King Triton doesn't get enough credit in this game. He is basically the most powerful character we never get to fight, which is immediately interesting. If he wanted, he could get off his throne and deal with this whole world's heartless issue without breaking a sweat, but his priorities as a stodgy, overprotective Disney dad are kinda skewed. Then we get this exchange.
Yup, we came to find the keyhole.
The what?
What's that?
Well, it's a...
There's no such thing, certainly not here.
But Daddy...
Ariel, not another word. You are not to leave the palace. Is that clear?
I love how Ariel just immediately turns to leave the palace. Teenagers, am I right, Your Majesty?
Perhaps I'm being too strict.
It's been a minute since we've seen this game's themes of authority pop up, and never so overtly from a character we can consider a good guy. Triton essentially sits as a foil to Sora in this world, both powerful enough to take action, but Sora's headstrong optimism contrasts with Triton's experienced reservations. Experience that rivals even that of Genie, it would seem.
But I must admit, now I'm quite curious about this keyhole.
That need not concern you, Sebastian.
If we head back into the palace, we can find a save point, and Sebastian will happily give us some lore, including a tidbit about Ursula that's never mentioned even in the movie. Apparently, she was a fortune teller before she was banished. We also get this sweet skylight in here, way fancier than the sunbeams in the treehouse. Dang, this looks nice. Ariel invites us to her grotto, but if we ignore her, we'll encounter a few new things, including sheltering zones. Kind of like the large bodies of the sea, they don't do much. They split into a school of sea neons when defeated unless you take them out with magic, further pushing this world's magic focus. A dolphin will also pop up in this area, and once it's clear of foes, you can latch on for a ride. This is a terrible introduction to a really important mechanic in this level, because this little ride does absolutely nothing. You just swoosh around in a circle for a while, but be sure to hitch a ride at least once. Baffling though it may be, that is required. Hey, wait a minute, how'd they get the dolphin's tail wrong? And why is he so angry? I also gotta show that if you do this with Goofy in the party, he latches onto Sora's hips in a way that looks especially, well, goofy. This is so frickin' sweet. Paralleling Ariel with the Destiny Islands trio, switching her movie's surface-based motivations to that of outside worlds? Brilliant. This grotto is on that deep jungle campsite kind of level, every detail so delightfully deliberate, taken either directly from the movie or adapted to function within the game's mechanics. Like, this is the only place we've seen the classic style of chests in Atlantica, ones we know from experience are emblematic of worlds besides this one. There's a torn page in the one on the upper shelves we should be sure to grab, but there are quite a few other things we can interact with too. This globe is just a slight reskin of the one from the campsite, this clock's pendulum swings if we hit it, and this little music box I can't pin down if the design is a reference to anything specific, but the little tune it plays certainly could be. Of course, this is just a sort of unsyncopated arpeggio, which could just as well be a reference to what is love as anything else. But the popular comparison is Who Am I from Final Fantasy VII. If this is deliberate, I'd question why both the keys and intervals are different. Maybe they just wanted to avoid having to do any copyright shenanigans for the sake of a little Easter egg, but now I'm left holding the bag and don't feel confident saying one way or the other. The last word I'll say on it is, it would absolutely be cooler if this were a reference, but I've gotten in trouble for assuming less. We got some Scuttle references with his telescope and the Snarfblat, and the barrels, which have the same properties as those from Monstro, being able to drop potions or ethers, and may have even come from the same ships. Flounder mentions the dolphin swimming around out there, but calls it a big fish, so like, maybe between that and its tail, it's not meant to be a dolphin? It's got a blowhole though. Is this some sort of dolphin-shark-mermaid fusion?
Those impudent fools will never find the keyhole.
One rumor that really likes to circle the Kingdom Hearts drain is that Disney had no faith in it. The only evidence to this claim is that, though the original pitch was to have Mickey Mouse be its main character, Disney shut that down, and their squeaky mascot was relegated to his unseen role. His prominence in future installments being seen as a concession of, oh, this series makes money? Sure, use them all you want. I find this rumor completely preposterous. Not just because we literally know exactly why Mickey couldn't show up in this game, it was because Capcom had already secured exclusive game rights to his likeness around that time. And ain't nobody gonna tell me that was because Disney had quote-unquote faith in Magical Mirror, or Mickey Mouse Preschool for that matter.
Looks like some harder ones. Oh, how exciting!
But even if we discounted that, this game screams confidence, oozes budget, and nowhere is that more prevalent than this Andromeda-class Leave 'em Blinded all-star cast. Huge names from the industry like Haley Joel Osment and Billy Zane are one thing, but the premium you have to pay to get the most iconic performances from the big screen to reprise their role in a video game? As many as I've already mentioned, that's not even the half of it. Tony Goldwyn, Scott Wanger, Linda Larkin, Bill Farmer, and Tony Anselmo, and no, I didn't forget, Jodie Benson, and
Triton, my old friend. Your day is coming.
Pat Carroll? Disney was throwing mountains of cash in every currency at this thing, and it lent a tremendous sense of legitimacy to this whole affair. Not just seeing so many old favorites, but hearing them have the time of their lives in the booth. Ursula is a particular treat. Pat Carroll's performance was truly one of the greats. Her animation still remains in a league of its own, but holy calamari, that range, that power!
Come on, you poor unfortunate soul! Go ahead, make your choice.
This one hurt, but I take comfort in her immortality as this burlesque bargainess.
Listen, when the time comes for me to go to the great green room in the sky, shed no sad tears. I've had the most wonderful life. I've done everything I wanted to do. I've had a ball doing it. I am very fortunate. Thank you. Amen.
Here's something cool I noticed. Sora's basic swimming animation changes when there are Heartless around. He shifts to holding his Keyblade forward to be a bit more battle-ready. This undersea garden area is only here to be a backdrop for a cutscene later, and of course to be a reference to the movie, but it's cool they opened it up to be explored when they clearly had no reason to. Hey, speaking of references to the movie, did you guys know this isn't Quack and Wolf's first soiree into these waters? Here they are attending Sebastian's concert in the opening of the film. You know something? I like these frickin' hot tub jets they got everywhere. Back in the Undersea Valley, as long as you hitched a ride in the gorge, that abominable Cameo will be swimming around here now, and if we latch on and trust that this mechanic is important for something, he'll carry us upstream in the calm depths to this cave. And then, if you go AFK for a sec to write this script, he'll pop out of the cave a moment later and push you back into the current. The Sunken Ship is one of the more iconic locations from the film, and effectively creates a very specific mood, doing away with the super upbeat music while you scour for hidden treasure below decks. There are two different versions of that scene depending on how you enter the lower deck. Then we get these extremely deliberate camera angles. And they ruined it. Why did he break the window and then shirk off? This should have been an intense moment, but instead he lets us take our time and meet him outside when we're ready. Even sillier, you are in control during that scene. Glut the shark, the Sabor of the ocean. A complete pushover and utterly Z-list Disney baddie. There's really not much for me to say here. His simple attacks are barely worth mentioning. The only twist he can throw in is this charge that might take you by surprise if you're not moving, but for everything he lacks as a boss fight, Glut is a surprisingly charming character that captures his animated encounter extremely faithfully. Most prominently is that if you avoid his charge attack, he'll crumple up against whatever he crashes into in a way I can't help but smile at. As for beating him, anything'll work honestly, but if you've seen the movie, this anchor sitting on the bottom of the area might catch your eye. He doesn't have a unique animation for ramming into it or anything, but the shape of it is nonetheless perfect for getting him stuck. You can just let him struggle there and take him down no sweat. He can drop some, well, certainly not useless items on defeat, but he won't put up any fuss to you leaving either, so there's not much reason for us to fight him just now. Well, we got that schmancy crystal trident, we could leave the way we came, but there's a back door too. It creates a shortcut straight back to Ariel's grotto, but even cooler than that, this massive wooden chest it dislodges is fully functional as a chest, and contains an orichalcum to boot. Progression in this world's kinda strange. It's got a reputation like the frickin' water temple though. Nothing explicitly hints you should head back to the grotto with our cool new crystal, but there are only so many places you can go. Flounder is basically our Jane Geppetto style hint master anyway, so I figure most players would find their way back here eventually.
Ariel, you've disobeyed me again. I told you not to leave the palace.
Daddy, no! How could you?
Ariel being completely destroyed by this is a bit silly. Like, yeah, it was pretty, but we just found it. And unlike the movie, he didn't even go on a rampage on all your other gadgets and gizmos. Still, as a kid, this hit me hard. Cause like, I found that thing, dude. Come on.
Young man, you're not from another ocean. You're from another world, aren't you?
Huh?
Then you must be the key bearer.
How did you know?
You may fool Ariel, but you can't fool me. You don't know your dorsal fin from your tail. As the key bearer, you must already know one must not meddle in the affairs of other worlds.
Of course I know that, but...
You have violated this principle. The key bearer shatters peace and brings ruin.
That scene has gotten cooler and cooler with every passing game in the series, but even without any of that hindsight, this gets your mind reeling. Past Keyblade wielders bringing ruin? Who were they? This introduces an element of legacy to Sora's role as Keyblade bearer, something that will continue to tickle at the back of our mind going forward. Far forward. Now we're gonna get like 3 more cutscenes in rapid succession, all of which are going to essentially fast forward the events of the movie, which, similar to Agrabah, does feel a little weak. Ursula lures an emotionally vulnerable Ariel into making a bad deal, but it's not a clever multi-layered gambit like in the movie.
Let me guess, you wish to see other worlds. That shouldn't be too hard. After all, your new friends came from another world.
What?
But they had special help. That mysterious key. Now, cheer up, sweetie. You have something special, too.
Huh?
Now listen carefully. I think the keyhole they seek is somewhere in the palace. Now, my dear, if you can take me there without your daddy knowing, I can help you get to these other worlds you long for.
She basically just lies to get what she wants, that being the Trident, which Triton has unaccountably left behind in the palace, so we can skip the plot. Okay, so now Ursula has the Trident, but her main goal was the keyhole, which isn't apparently in the palace, which you'd think she'd know since she used to live there. I'm not trying to be overly derisive, this really does feel that hand-wavy. Optimistically, I'll assume this comes from a gameplay-first mentality. We've already fought the shark, and between that and the end of the movie, there isn't much in the way of action unless we have an interlude fending off Chef Louis. Now I really wish there were an interlude where we fend off Chef Louis. One last new Heartless will intercept us in our pursuit of Ursula: Aqua Tanks. Between them and sheltering zones, they kind of create a cohesive theme in this world's Heartless having an always swim with a buddy mentality. These guys will always spawn with up to 3 screwdivers. They have a few unique properties as well. They have no resistance to thunder, but after launching all of their divers at you, if you cast thunder on them, they negate 90% of its damage and charge up a counterspell. But while charging, they lose that resistance. They can use that same thunder attack unprovoked too, and it has friendly fire, which enables them to heal screwdivers and trigger other nearby aqua tanks into charging up, creating an infinite loop. It's a really cool instance of interspecies symbiosis we haven't seen outside of Green Requiems. We're nearly done with this world already, but before we head off towards the final area, I want to mention something cool about Sora's merman form. We are permanently in a state of flight in this world, so if I use the same hack I've been using to enable flight in other worlds to disable it in this one, we get to see something interesting. The game tries to get him to act as much like human Sora as it can, but doesn't have the right animation data to draw from. Of course, there's no jumping animation, so he just A-poses, but there's also no landing animation, and yet the game still plays one. This is one of his getting hit animations, so I don't know how the code chose it for this, but I find it fascinating. Both Triton and Flounder direct us back to the area of the Sunken Ship, where Sebastian can wedge himself in to reach this switch. Checking it earlier resulted in a lot of generic "what's this is" from Sora, but check it now with Glut still patrolling the area, and he'll give you a very funny, "Isn't there something else you should be doing?" I gotta admit, I can't quite put my foot on it right now, but if I just stand here long enough, I know that before heading into the spooky cave, head back into the spooky ship, and if you're lucky, some old friends will be hanging out in the cabin. These mushrooms can perform a stop charade and are not attached to a pink agaricus, which makes them our source for a stop arts. Now we are only missing Arrow. Heck yeah. The Den of Tides is one of the most visually stunning areas in this game. It's a shame it's little more than a hallway. This view of the entrance to Ursula's lair is cool because they could have gotten away with making it a 2D texture like the palace, but instead it's fully modeled and looks straight out of the film. I highly recommend hooking Sora up with a few ethers, as well as equipping gravity and fire on his quick select. Let's see, what else? We could admire these emaciated shrimp on the floor, but one mustn't lurk in doorways. Let's head in.
Your time has come!
It's probably surprised a few of you that I have yet to mention that in the original version of this game, skippable cutscenes weren't a thing. And a lot of kids got some of these pre-battle dialogue exchanges drilled into them relentlessly from watching them before every attempt. I'm only bringing it up now because for me, this was that scene. It may be short, but I still hear Sebastian saying my time has come in my nightmares, so for this fight, it's personal. Ursula is not a straightforward boss. Much like the world she reigns over, this encounter is entirely focused on magic, and has a lot going on. So let's start going over things one at a time. Ursula herself doesn't have a tremendous amount of HP, but in her base state she is immune to all magic. Probably not summons, but hey, that's another mechanic we can't access in the Deep Blue Sea. Physical attacks won't avail you much either though. She has the lowest possible MP recovery of any foe we've fought since learning our first spell. So even at level 1, the MP she'll give us access to is diminished. That's if you can even land a hit, as she'll always respond to your physical attacks with this super spinny maneuver that deflects all physical strikes throughout its ridiculous duration. On top of that, she has her 2 darlings for us to deal with as well. Flotsam and Jetsam aren't terribly threatening, but in conjunction with their mumsy, they can make this arena feel suffocatingly dangerous. They go down pretty quickly, but as soon as they're both knocked out, Ursula will always revive them as soon as she's able, so we can't very well keep them out of the way while we deal with her. Best we can do is take one down and leave the other to hopefully stay preoccupied with our party members. But that still leaves the issue of how immune to everything Ursula is. Try to take her down the old-fashioned way and she'll do everything in her power to make that exceedingly difficult and tedious. You will genuinely be lucky to get off a single combo before she takes off pinwheeling again. It all gets sort of hilariously easy once you actually know everything going on under the hood though. This is where her cauldron comes in. Triton mentioned before we headed out, it's the source of her power. Not in a Jafar's lamp kind of way, more in the classic, I've got a bomb and I'd prefer it didn't explode while I'm still holding it sort of way. Throughout the fight, when she's not whipping around like a teacup, Ursula will toss ingredients into the cauldron. These look just like the one she used to turn Ariel human, by the way. Every 3 ingredients, it will unleash either a tornado or eruption spell. Which one she's got cooking is indicated by the color the cauldron glows. Both are pretty simple to avoid, stick to the ceiling, and neither can hit you. That might not even be worth keeping in mind though. Your job will be to keep her from casting those spells to begin with. By firing your own magic into the cauldron, you can cause it to overload. It doesn't actually matter which spells you use, but fire is the obvious choice for its low cost and rapid cast. This is where this fight starts to confuse me. Casting a spell on the cauldron will cause it to launch a fireball at Ursula, which travels so slow and hits for so little damage I was once convinced this was nothing more than a visual effect. Now, hitting the cauldron with enough spells causes it to unleash a shockwave that does a bit of damage to Ursula and knocks out both eels. This leaves Ursula stunned for ages and removes her magic resistance. Don't waste your magic though, it's too valuable in this fight. Now the question is, how many spells does it take to make it unleash this shockwave? And the answer is, I have no idea. There are so many factors that seem to play into it, from how much HP Tentacle Mommy has left, to how many times the cauldron's already overloaded, to how many ingredients it needs to let loose with one of her spells. I can't really wrap my head around it. I've seen it take as many as 20 fire spells. But none of that matters, because this is all you need to know. When Ursula has 2 ingredients in the pot and it's glowing like this, red or blue, doesn't matter which, it always takes 6 spells to pop, which is the lowest number possible. So here's the game plan. At the start of the battle, target one of the eels. They have no magic resistances at all, but they do pack a damage cap of 20. For reasons I am not here to interrogate, gravity supersedes all damage caps and can slice off a huge bite of their HP. So I recommend using a gravity spell and an attack or 2 to take one out right away. Meanwhile, Ursula will only use her spin attack in 2 situations, after receiving a melee attack or after recovering from a stun. This means you can basically ignore her and let her fuel her cauldron with ingredients. Once it's got 2 charges, let loose on it with exactly 6 fireballs, and that's got her incapacitated. Command your party members, if they're still alive, to wail on her alongside you until she recovers and revives her poopsies. And lastly, you just need to avoid both the Spinny Funny and the eel's attacks for a few seconds. Make liberal use of the chamber's height to accomplish that, and you should be free to repeat the process. The main roadblock now is having enough magic to use a gravity and 6 Fyras every cycle, especially with Ursula being so stingy with magic recovery. Like I said, I highly recommend having a stock of ethers on hand, but if you haven't got the items to spare or you simply run out, there is one more source. The eels happen to have the highest MP recovery of any enemy in this game, a full 100, so unless you are at max level, these 2 are extremely handy MP batteries. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, and it honestly shouldn't. Even on a level 1 run, this fight is a lot shorter than it seems because Ursula will give up if you make her cauldron explode when she's at less than 150 HP, essentially letting you skip a full third of the encounter.
You'll pay for this!
With that all done with, we can't give chase to her directly, but there are a few goodies for us here. We can see her vanity mirror has a sort of reflection of her stool and cauldron in it, which is cute, but there's also an extremely obscure treasure in this room. You have to first leave and come back to make another one of those explosive sea urchins appear, blast it with fire, and when it bursts, it will cause this clam to open up and drop a mithril. The big get from that fight though is of course Mermaid Kick, a shared ability that lets us absolutely swoosh our way around this world. Though, as with all things in Atlantica, we can't just enjoy our dessert, there's gotta be a catch. This ability is mapped to our means of rising and sinking. Double tap either while trying to be precise, and Sora will take off like Kyrie just called a race. It takes some getting used to. Both our hint givers point us to our new objective being at the top of the Calm Depths currents, which we can now swim against with no aid from whatever this thing is, letting us see a new cave has opened up at the far end. Go all out on preparing for this one. For the first time, I highly recommend equipping Sora with as many elixirs as he can carry. You're also going to want to have Cure, Gravity, and Stop on the quick command. Once you've got everything squared away, head on in.
You pathetic fools! I rule the seas now!
The song playing right now is called The Deep End, and it is Kingdom Hearts' way of letting you know you are in for a storm. Giant Ursula is often considered on par with many of the most difficult bosses in this game. She has it all, a massive HP bar, full command over her arena, and enough lightning bolts to make Zeus blush. This is a grueling battle that at times borders on feeling like a bullet hell, but it's gotta be done. Ursula's primary means of attack is Thundara. These bolts will target you constantly throughout the fight, only letting up during a few specific attacks. The bolts are telegraphed by these rays of light that take a second to turn into hitboxes, essentially forcing you to remain on the move at all times. The other attacks you're likely to see are Bubble, a swarm that will home in on Sora that I've never actually seen anyone get hit by, and Bite. She'll channel her inner Charybdis and try to suck you in before chomping down. If you get caught in this vortex, you have to use Mermaid Kick to keep out of range. You may also see her use Thundara Beam, but this will become more common as her health wanes. You've probably already noticed all of her attacks except Thundara have a significant blind spot behind her, and though she does try to keep you in her sights at all times, you have too much freedom of movement to be stopped, and can pass over her head like one of my better jokes, then nestle into the fat folds of her neck and just go to town. Going high is already the best way to avoid both Bite and the laser, so this is generally where you'll want to be anyway. Now, it's easy to get overly comfortable when you're back here. The lightning bolts aren't too bad, you can keep up the damage as long as you don't stay still between combos, and she stops casting them entirely when she goes to inhale with a Bite, which gives you an opportunity to absolutely turn your brain off. But once she gets down to half HP, she'll change your tune.
Now I'm angry. Time to teach you some respect!
She'll begin by using her desperation move Thundaga, a ring of more powerful lightning that surrounds her. Despite appearances, there's no blind spot in the middle. The only way to avoid this is by getting the heck out of dodge. From here on, it becomes one of her most frequently used attacks, telegraphed by the proclamation of
This won't be pretty!
And she's right. From this point on, this fight is down and dirty. Her regular Thundara attack will accelerate until it's completely relentless, and to hear some people talk about it, impossible to avoid. Now it's my turn. This fight is not that bad, even on level 1. I do know where its reputation comes from. It's because everything about Sora's melee combat is keyed around his finisher. So far, the game has done nothing but reward a full combo or bust mindset, but one last time, this is not the melee world. Let go of that need to pull off a finisher. The best you can consistently do in this fight is one attack at a time. Strap in, you are in for quite the test of endurance. She'll keep chasing you off with Thundaga, but if you don't get greedy and mindlessly stuck in, this is all just as easy to avoid as the first phase. She'll keep trying to use Bite, in which case you can rack up the damage, but for the rest, it's just hit, move, hit, move. I recommend saving as much magic as you can from the first phase, and if you feel comfortable using it instead of saving for cure, Gravity is surprisingly potent. Yes, she resists 96% of its damage, but given how much health she has, 4% of 800 damage is a neat little time saver. Speaking of time, Stop can save your life in a pinch. If she starts winding up a Thundaga and you don't have time to escape, you can cast Stop and give yourself quite a bit of breathing room. This is certainly where those elixirs come in handy, as both of those spells are going to be a much heavier drain on your MP bar than fire. Through it all, just keep a cool head and send this Kraken back to the depths. With all that said and done, it's time to wrap up this world in a bow. As simple as this has all been, Triton seeing the value in Sora past the weapon he wields is a satisfying miniature arc. We also learned the crystal trident he destroyed was about to reveal the keyhole in Ariel's grotto, and I have to wonder, how does the keyhole in each world end up where it does? They're all, like, super plot significant areas, and if I can wax poetic for a moment, I think they could each be considered the heart of their respective stories. The gateway to Wonderland, the gorilla's home, the place where Aladdin and Genie met, and now the visual representation of Ariel's dearest wish. Triton has one interesting line on the subject though. He mentions it may have appeared in her grotto because it was drawn to her longing to see other worlds. And if that doesn't just slot the long Tetris piece into place, I don't know what does. Everywhere from the cave where Sora and Kairi drew fantastic adventures through other worlds, to the prison where Genie sat longing for eons to be free, all of these characters have fantasized about discovering a new life somewhere beyond the bounds they grew up in. Maybe that's too easy, that's practically written on Walt Disney's front door, but suddenly, it's no wonder these movies were chosen to be this game's settings. Well played, Nomura. Before we pop over to the keyhole again, we've obtained Thundara, which packs double the base power of Thunder, so we might actually start using it again. And another Ansem report. Seems it was naive to hope we'd find them in order, but this one is much more interesting than the first. It details how Ansem came to study and name the dark creatures we know as Heartless. There's a lot I could say about this, but I think it'll be better to wait until we have more reports for me to bounce off of. The Heartless are nowhere to be found now that Ursula's been defeated, which confirms she was the one directly summoning them here. So this is my fan theory. Ursula's plan, after watching Sora and co venture from world to world, was to effectively lure them here to Atlantica by flooding it with Heartless. This would enable her to prey on Ariel's dreams of outside worlds by revealing to her that her new friends came from those worlds. And now she's the duplicitous schemer we all know and love. If we try to get back to Big Ursula's arena again, we'll find it blocked off, but it's worth noting the map itself is referred to by the game as Open Ocean, and for some reason, her defeat did not result in her past victims regaining their old forms like in the movie. Sorry guys, I guess you're on your own.
Tell me, Sora, your world, what's it like?
Oh, about that. Sorry for lying to you.
It's okay. Besides, if you can travel to other worlds, maybe I can too.
I've hammered this point enough, but I just want to mention that whatever loosey-goosey rules these three follow would make it okay to bring Ariel with us if her world were destroyed and she survived as a summon gem.
Well, if you find it, do me a favor and leave me out of it!
Our last reward for clearing this world is Crabclaw. Not a bad Keyblade at all, it's very nearly just a direct upgrade to 3 wishes, and a great choice if Spellbinder's low strength is a deal breaker for you. Despite that, this is no one's favorite. I think it just comes down to the design. The crab feels like, I want to say, photoshopped on, and doesn't feel like it's really part of the weapon. It does have this mermaid and merman design on the handguard, which is kind of fun, but at the same time, a little kitschy. In any case, I'll happily use this for a bit. 1 MP is still a lot better than none. Before we wrap up, we have unlocked frightfully little in the way of stuff in the other worlds, but Mermaid Kick does serve a functional purpose in any area we can swim in. We can now swim a bit faster. In addition to that, the little leap Sora does out of the water does let him kinda almost do what I've been asking for all game, and he can now get on some platforms from the water as long as they're low enough. And as long as you're playing the PS2 version. I imagine most people are not, so I'm gonna leave this chest closed for guide purposes, but hey, it's there. As for why this doesn't work in modern releases, Kingdom Hearts suffered a number of glitches to its physics system when it was upgraded from 30 to 60 frames per second. Most of these issues have been fixed since the PS3 days, but this remains one casualty. Synthesis! Having found some more consistent sources for both Frost and Thunder Gems, we can now craft AP ups far more consistently. These are exceedingly helpful not just for Sora but for his companions as well. Though of course, if you want to grind for these, you'll also need to grind for the materials necessary to make Mithril. As for the rest of them, Lucid Gems and Power Gems are still only dropped by White Mushrooms for now, which would make for a much more tedious grind. So I did that. Farming for Lucid Gems in the Cave of Wonders actually wasn't that bad, and I do more or less recommend it because for crafting 15 unique items, we will get access to the next tier and a unique ability, Encounter Plus. This makes any grinding we want to do way easier, causing enemies to respawn just by exiting and re-entering the room, whereas it normally takes getting 2 loading zones away. The real prize here is this Atlas Armlet available in Tier 4, which raises our MP by 2 when equipped, a great use of the dark matter we've gathered so far. Let's finish off this watery world with one last splash. If we take the water gleam we found in Monstro to the Fairy Godmother, she unlocks the summon of Dumbo, the amazing flying elephant. This summon always seemed to me like it should have been unlocked in Atlantica, since not only is it super water-coated, it also provides you with flight while in use, controlled identically to swimming. Dumbo's splash attack is one of the cooler summon abilities in my opinion. Functionally, it's a flamethrower that can absolutely decimate crowds and strong single targets alike, something thing especially neat about it is that it counts, for all intents and purposes, as blizzard magic. This does mean some enemies are immune, but I think it's worth it just on a game feel level. And perhaps most importantly, Sora is also immune to all damage while riding this fella, which I'm sure you can imagine will come in quite a bit of handy. Now, to bid farewell to the watery world. It's weird. In its own way, it feels more optional than any other world in this game. It's kinda hard to pin down, but as one example, you know what we didn't find in that world? I'll give you a sec to think about it. Puppies. We didn't use any trinities, there were no new gummy blueprints on the way, it almost feels like we were intended to skip it, which a lot of people do, whether because they don't like it or just to prep as much as possible for the big fight with Ursula. Atlantica tends to get glossed over, and as divisive as it is, I really enjoyed it. Sora's merman form, at least from an exploratory angle, feels like a hugely natural fit for this game. And though it does neuter our physical combat, I love magic, and having a world that feels so emphatically built around it goes pretty hard. Even without that mindset, I don't think it gets enough credit. The unique mechanics stretching out to every aspect of the world, all the way down to its treasure chests, is really something. It has its stumbling points, of course, but also has its heights. The boss fights are both challenging and dramatic recreations of thoroughly iconic scenes from the movie. Sure, we didn't get to stab Ursula with a boat, but oh my god, the scale of it all. I'm the size of one of her teeth. I am a mosquito trying to buzz her to death, and I did it! The accomplishment is real, and I would not trade it for anything. Certainly not for any number of musical minigames. Of course, if you didn't enjoy it, I respect that, but you at least have to admire the effort that went into this one. Completely unique models, retooled animations and hitboxes, and a physics overhaul all for one world? It almost seems unfair, but from where I'm sitting, I can't think of a Disney movie more deserving. It's easy to make jokes, but when Disney movies went from looking like this to this, it was a breath of life into the entire animation industry. Of course, the whole story is more complicated, without the lifelines cast by the great mouse detective and Roger Rabbit, without Don Bluth Productions showing him how it's done, and without the writing, musical, and directive talents of everyone involved, things would have gone very differently. But one thing is certain, The Little Mermaid was Disney's first undisputed masterpiece in nearly 40 years. It reminded the world why that G. Look and D was a household mainstay, and more importantly, it helped Disney themselves to realize they were more than just their namesake, and that art is more than just a product. A lesson they could really stand to learn again these days. But it's no leap to assume, without Ariel, Disney would be unrecognizable, easily as cowed and timid as they were in their dark ages. To put it another way, I'm confident in saying, without Atlantica, there's no Agrabah, no Deep Jungle, no Olympus Coliseum, perhaps even no Kingdom Hearts. So, I'll happily take the time every playthrough to be a part of this world. Next time, we set our sights on somewhere a bit spookier. As I hope you know by now, next time means right now for my unfathomably wonderful patrons. And if you click the link in the description, you can come by my Patreon and join in the fun. And be among the plethora I owe so much thanks to, like Amiri the Grey, who needs no introduction. Raven, who once stuck his hand into a wasp nest just to see what it felt like, but instead of being stung, they made his thumb into their queen. Rockington knows the number you're thinking of right now, even if it's like -I to the power of pi. Grim Degree used a monkey paw to wish for the power of flight, and the monkey paw decided he was so chill it just granted the wish no strings attached. Meryl Hainsworth has a sword forged from the blood of her enemies. Thankfully, her enemies are these carbonite golems from another dimension. And Scar Daddio, who thought all those grunts and clicks cavemen spoke in was a bit inefficient, so he came up with that whole language thing. Real time saver. More obsessive shoutouts to Chris Bradell, Raisin Brand, The Humble Oscar, Sato de Sable, 10-Beat, RPG Grenade, Tabriz Sadiq, Kane Lowwind, Rucksack 358-2, Red Panda King, Remus, Busy Town, Zara, Eric Lee, and the leagues of other patrons whose names are on screen now. With you all, my collection is truly complete, and I will see you in the next one.